My name's Anthony Bonaducci. I'm one of the founders here at Cosmos Data Technologies. Again, a huge thank you to the Optimus team for organizing this and inviting us to present today. And obviously, a big thank you to all of you who are attending and carving time out of your day to take a look at our presentation. Wanted to just spend a couple minutes in the slides to set a foundation, as Gabriel mentioned, and then I'll pass it over to Brian Peterson, our Chief Operating Officer, to show you all of this functionality in action. And so I won't spend a ton of time talking about us, but just for those of you who aren't familiar, Cosmos Data Technologies is the first and only true cloud-based reporting and analytics solution built specifically for Business Central. We consider ourselves industry veterans in this space. We've been doing this for 35 years, focusing on reporting and analytics for Microsoft customers specifically. And when we built Cosmos, what I will draw your attention to is this box up here in the top right with the red. When we built this product after decades of working with other reporting and analytics solutions, we wanted to make sure that Cosmos was lightning fast, easy to use, secure, and fully cloud-based via Microsoft Azure. And so those were kind of the pillars we focused on from a product perspective. And the thing that really made us famous in this space was certainly around the performance. That's an area where we hit the nail on the head, as they say, because Cosmos reports, I should say, run 48 times faster than other Excel-based reporting solutions that are seen in the Microsoft space. So performance is certainly an area that really made us famous. But at the end of the day, again, Cosmos is all things reporting, analytics, data management, et cetera, for Business Central Cloud. And again, I'll introduce the feature, but we extended that functionality, made things more robust by integrating Power BI into the product. And so I'll talk about how that works. And again, Brian is going to show that here in the next few minutes. So Power BI, I'm sure everyone on this call has probably heard of it, but it's a bit confusing, right? Because you have this giant marketing machine in Microsoft that pushes out content around what Power BI is and what people should think it is. But there's certainly a little bit of a disconnect as far as how people use it and the usability around it. And that's why we wanted to approach this piece of development, right? And when we talk about this feature that Brian's going to show, this was not our idea, right? This is feedback from the Microsoft partner channel, partners like Optimus, as well as our customer base, as far as what they wanted us to build and how they wanted this integration to work. So the fun part about this functionality is that it's what you asked for, right? It's what the market asked for. And so before we jump into that, I'd like to level set a bit on Power BI and make sure everyone's on the same page as far as what this tool is, what it does, what it doesn't, and where Cosmos fits into all of this. So the first thing I want to talk about really quickly is just what is Power BI, right? And if you look at this slide here, this is how Microsoft describes their product, Power BI, right? It's a tool that allows you to connect to and visualize any data using the unified, scalable platform for self-service and enterprise business intelligence that's easy to use and helps you gain deeper data insights. So obviously that's got their marketing spin on it, right? But you can pull out and extrapolate what this is really referring to and what it means. So I've been presenting on Power BI since basically its inception at all the large user events. So it's something I'm very familiar with, and I've worked with a lot of users that leverage Power BI. And what I think stands out to me every time I see this slide, and what should stand out to you, are a few of the words that Microsoft uses. So the first is connect to. And this is a strength and a weakness of Power BI. If you've tried using Power BI, you install Power BI desktop, and the first thing you need to do is connect Power BI to some sort of data. And the reason I say it's a strength and a weakness is because the strength is that it has a ton of different ways it can connect to data and a ton of different types of data it can connect to. So that's certainly a strength. It's very flexible. The weakness is connecting to data does not make the data usable by Power BI right away. And I'm sure there's many folks attending today that have seen that same thing. You hook Power BI up to your ERP or to Business Central, and it's just a bunch of tables. You have to go through and denormalize the data, join it all together, tie all the tables together, get the data in the format that Power BI likes. So that's kind of the weakness, right? Because that's the part that's not talked about enough, but is the main tripping point or stumbling point for most users. So that's the first piece. Visualize is the second thing that stands out. And that's probably the most accurate word in this description, right? Because for all intents and purposes, Power BI in the hands of the typical business user is going to be used for visualization, just like you see on this graphic here, right? We're taking data, we're creating a nice dashboard, a nice visualization of our data so that we can analyze it, spot trends, etc. The third thing that stands out is enterprise business intelligence. And the reason I always call this out is because of that word enterprise. When we think about enterprise, that typically means big, right? Big companies, enterprise size companies. And I think that's an important distinction. I'm going to show you something at the very end of the presentation, which is a white paper from Microsoft that shows you what they recommend step by step to deploy Power BI for your enterprise business, right? And I think you'll get what I'm trying to convey here. But if left solely to Power BI functionality, you kind of need to be a big business to get this thing off the ground, because there's a lot of work that needs to go in ahead of time to clean up the data, organize it, build out your queries, write code, things like that. And so with the Cosmos integration we'll talk about, you don't have to deal with any of that stuff. So I like to point that out. And then finally, easy to use. And I'm a huge Power BI fan, and I think Power BI can be very easy to use if you address the data problem ahead of time and you set Power BI up for success, you set your users up to be successful with Power BI. So again, that's a lot. We're going to talk about that a little bit more and break this down. So I mentioned earlier that we built this product because of direct feedback from the market. And the reason we asked for that feedback and asked if this was a viable feature and something people were interested in is because every time we show Cosmos, or we showed the tool we worked with formerly, we'd hear Power BI come up, and we'd ask people, well, are you using Power BI? And it was always some answer like this. We have some Power BI licenses, but we're not really using them. Or I tried using it, but I couldn't get very far with the solution. Or, we assigned a responsibility to this person we just hired. They've been trying to get up to speed, but it's been a really long road so far. We don't really have much to show. And again, to me, someone who knows the power of Power BI, that's a really disappointing thing to hear consistently. So we wanted to solve for that. And the reason we created this integration that we're going to cover is really kind of described well in these boxes. The first is to remove the complexities associated with a typical Power BI deployment. That's pretty straightforward, right? We wanted to make it easy to start using Power BI same day. I mean, you get Cosmos, you have Power BI, you can start using it. So that's one of the reasons we did this. Another is to reduce the need for support and enable users to be self-sufficient. The problem with Power BI right now is that most organizations that are using it, it's not organization-wide, right? People have to go to the technical resource or the analytics team, or they have to go to their partner, or they have to go to hire a consultant, right? We want to make this so that anyone who needs Power BI to do their job is able to use it. And so that's what we did with this integration. We wanted to help users quickly visualize their data, find the answers that they need within. I know we're not going to show Cosmos in detail today, but Cosmos has the whole reporting side of the product, right? And reporting is fantastic for, trying to run your financial statements or run operational reports that are, Excel based, right? Where you want to see micro level information. Like, I want to see what our sales were this month, or I want to see who our customers were last month, or whatever, right? But with Power BI, you want to take that data and you want to analyze the macro view. You want to see, how are we trending year over year? What items are we selling the most of? Where are we growing? Where should we invest? And so we want to help users make that a reality. And finally, as I've already said, short and sweet, this is what the market asked for, so this is what we delivered. So let me introduce this integration high level, and then I'm going to turn it over to Brian to show this. But what we developed is a two-way integration with Power BI. So the first side of this integration is inside of Power BI itself. And what we're doing there is we're taking Cosmos's organized data model for Business Central, and we're surfacing that inside of Power BI via an API and an OData layer that we created. So our Cosmos customers are able to take the same data they use in the same format for their typical Excel-based reports and now push that and connect directly to Power BI. What that'll do, which Brian's going to show, is give you organized views of your data. So all you have to do is hook up to your data and you can start dragging and dropping and building Power BI dashboards. That's something you don't even really need training on. It's that simple, right? And you'll see what Brian does in a minute, but all the data is organized. If you want to see sales by customer, you drag in sales, you drag in customer. If you want to see sales by year, you drag in sales, you drag in year, right? It's very, very easy to use. So that's one side of the integration. The other side of the integration is for our Cosmos customers. Inside of their Cosmos web portal is now a Power BI section. And what that does is that goes out on a per user basis and makes a call to powerbi.com and says, hey, for everything that Brian has access to in powerbi.com, show it here side by side with all of my standard financial and operational reports. And the reason we did that is because other tools can feed data into Power BI, but then what? You build a dashboard, you build a report, where do you put it? How do you tell your users where to go for which report or for which dashboard, right? So we wanted to take absolutely everything anyone would need for reporting and just put it in one place. And that's what users want, right? They want their reports, they want their dashboards, they want to be able to bounce between the two of them. So that's really the high level idea here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to have Brian grab control. So Brian, let me stop sharing here and I'll have you take over and you can take folks through an overview of this. And then if you want at the end, I'll kind of wrap things up with a few closing thoughts. So I'll grab controls back at the end. Sound good?
That sounds good to me.
All right. Well, I just stopped sharing. You should be able to grab the screen now.
All right. Perfect. I'm going to go ahead and share that. Perfect. Can you see Power BI, Anthony?
I can.
All right. Well, thanks. Thanks for the introduction and welcome everybody. So as Anthony mentioned, what I want to do is go through and show you how to connect Power BI directly to your Cosmos data, right? As Anthony mentioned, we have a lot of tools built into Cosmos for connecting to a nice clean version of the data. So to do this, when you open up the Power BI desktop, as Anthony mentioned, the first thing that you need to do is tell it where you want to get the data from. So in that case, I'll go ahead and click Get Data, and I'll show you how simple it is to use Power BI and then connect it directly up to Cosmos. So in here, I'm going to come in, I'm going to search for our OData connection directly in Power BI. I click Connect. And then I'm just going to paste in a URL where we're surfacing what's called an API to connect directly to your Cosmos data. So if this is the first time that you're connecting to Cosmos, it would just prompt you to log in with your Microsoft account. I've already done that. So you see what we have available next is a nice clean version of all of our data in here. And one of the reasons that this is really important, as Anthony mentioned, for any of you that have tried connecting directly to a database or an ERP system, you oftentimes get a huge number of tables that you then need to know how to kind of connect the dots for all of them to get the data working the way that you want. With Cosmos, we lay everything out in a nice, simple and intuitive manner. So anything related to your general ledger transactions is going to be right down here in this GL transactions table, for example. Or if I want to go and look at sales transactions, I have all of my information right down here. Just so you know, this sales transactions table is bringing information from about 14 different tables in Business Central and consolidating everything into one nice table. There's a preview over here on the right that has all of our sales document numbers, document types, all of this interesting information that we can then go and pull in. So from a Power BI perspective, I could just come in here and say, I want to bring in my company table, customer. We have a date table for some good date intelligence, my global dimensions, item, and you can just start checking the boxes for all of the things that you want. Once this is done, I would go ahead and click the load button. Since it's going to pull in all of the data from my ERP system, sometimes that can take a couple minutes. So for the sake of time, what I want to show you is right over here. I've already gone through that process where I have all of those tables over here on the right-hand side, and the data is already loaded. But so what is this? Why does this matter? Right. A lot of you have probably seen presentations or demos of Power BI where someone has a data set and what they're doing is they start just dragging and dropping. But when you go to access your actual data, that process becomes a lot more complicated because, like I mentioned, you have to pick all of the tables, you have to join all of the tables, you have to build things in Power BI. And with Cosmos, we actually make it so your experience with your data is what you expect it to be. If I come in here, for example, and if I want to add a few things, so I can come in here and maybe I want to add a Cosmos logo. If I want to come in and add a text box of some kind, right? So global sales dashboard or whatever I want this to be. I can add some details here just to make this look a little bit nicer. And the next thing I'm going to show you is really how do I go through and start accessing my data. So one of the things that you'll see over here on the side is I have all of these tables. Like here's this sales transactions table that I mentioned just a moment ago. And if I want to start building something out, right, I can drag out sales. I can tell this how I want to look at that sales data. Maybe I want to look at it by my my customer state, for example. So I can come down to my sell to customer and I can check the box and say that I want to look at it by state. But maybe I want to look at this on a map of some kind, right? So you see here that just by coming in and dragging a few things out, I dragged out sales, I dragged out state, and then I click the visual that I want. I see all that information now in Power BI. Same thing if I wanted to see more details. I can come in here and look at this by salesperson code. But then maybe I realize, well, what if my users don't actually know what all the salesperson codes are? What if I want the salesperson name? Again, Power BI makes it, and Cosmos make it very easy to just go to the salesperson table and say, hey, I want to look at it by, the name, right? For whatever the name may be, as far as some of these are concerned. So there are lots of different ways that we can come in and look at the information, basically look at the information however we want it to be. So I can see Anton Hayes and Dirk Mendez and so on. One other thing that people oftentimes really want to look at is how are sales trending over time, especially with a lot of the uncertainty with COVID and the economic woes associated with that. Are sales going up? Are they going down? What's a quick, easy way for me to look at this? And one of the things I want to show you, I had mentioned that we have a lot of nice ways to look at date intelligence. I can come in here to posting date, and I can just drag out this month year. And one of the things that you'll see is everything is then going to show and be set out the way that I want it to show as far as my report's concerned. And I can come in here, I can sort this based off of the sum of the sales for these, or I can just sort it by the actual months and then get a look and feel of everything that I want to see here. And so lots of different ways of looking at the information. And if I want to come in and add some filters here, one more thing that I can do as well is I can add in slicers. These are just visual ways where I can come in and look at the data in different ways. So I can, filter on this and narrow the information down, or I can come in here and use something like a list where I can say I want it to be kind of horizontal icons. And maybe I want to look at, 2019, 2021, whatever it may be, and then I can see all of my months laid out. One additional thing that I want to point out, if I add a new sheet right over here, one thing that can be really handy as well is if I come in here and add in something like Q&A. So Q&A provides a very simple way for business users to come in and ask questions about all of your sales data using natural language. And so maybe I want to see total sales by year or whatever it may be. And I can see here that it's showing all of my sales and how my sales has actually trended by year. And maybe I want to look at it by something else. Maybe I want to look at it by my sell to customers, right? I want to see it by the sell to customer name is what I want to see it by. There we go. And so now it'll come in here and tell me what it is that I want to look at, right? Or what it is that I want to see. Total sales by customer name. There we go. And so I can come in here and I can see all of my actual customers and how much they've had in sales. And I can say for 2022 or whatever it may be, right? And so now it's actually just showing me sales for 2022. You saw all the sales numbers got a lot smaller. And so this is something that can actually add a ton of value, because you can have users that aren't very sophisticated, or have always needed to go to other people in the organization to ask questions or have them put information together. And now you can have those people come in here and just ask questions of their data and have that information shown visually. But one of the things that I want to show you in terms of, kind of taking this full circle, is I have the ability to come in here and I can then publish this up. Before I do this, let me come in to my Cosmos portal, and I'm just going to log in really quick. You see here that it's going to log in with my Microsoft account. And I can come right over here to my reporting section where I have all of my financial and operational reports. And I have this Power BI section. And what it did is it actually just went in and loaded all of the Power BI reports that have been shared with me. Now, you see that I don't currently have anything called Power BI to the people in here. And so I wanted to show you, if I come into this dashboard that I just built, what I can do is I can just click this publish button. I'm going to save my changes. And then what I'm going to do is it'll ask me which workspace I want to save this in. I'll just save this in the sales workspace. And what this is going to do, this is actually going to take that Power BI report, and it's going to take that Power BI report and it's going to publish it up to Power BI for me. You can see that that just finished. And one of the nice things, as Anthony was mentioning, is if I go to another screen and if I come back, one of the things that we'll notice is here's that Power BI to the people webinar that I just published a moment ago. So you can see here that all of my Power BI reports are in one place. I'm directly here within the Cosmos portal. I can click the view button. Oh, it's going to ask me to sign in. I can click the view button, and here is that dashboard that I built just a moment ago. And the nice thing about this is that everything is customizable. I can click on any of these buttons to look at Laura, for example, and I can see specifically where Laura has been selling to, when Laura has been selling. All of my Q&A is still available over on the side with whatever question was I typed in just a moment ago. But all of my Power BI information lives here side by side with all of my financial reporting and all of my operational reporting. So it's very easy for business users to come in and get access to everything they need. One more thing I want to show that's also very important is that Power BI report, right? That's pulling in nice, clean Cosmos data, which makes it very easy for me to build and publish those reports, as you saw. I can also come over here and I can come into Business Central. Right? So you see here that I'm in my Business Central tenant, and I can come into with Power BI. Let me just set this up really quick. There we go. I can come into Power BI, and by clicking Select Reports, since everything that we do with Cosmos is tightly integrated with Microsoft, you can see here that I have all of those reports that I just saw, and I can embed my Power BI to the people webinar dashboard directly in Business Central as well. So you can have your role centers for your users. You can easily surface very nice, meaningful Power BI reports directly to your users that are also interactive, as I mentioned, directly within Business Central. And so if you want to make it bigger, you could increase the size of this. But again, it's very easy to leverage all of your Cosmos data, see it in the Cosmos portal, as well as seeing it directly in Business Central as well. And as Anthony mentioned, that's something that unfortunately we've seen a lot of people struggle with over the years is, get meaningful access to their data in Power BI, surfaced wherever it is their business users are. So. Anthony, I know that we're running a little short on time, and so I wanted to go ahead and pass it back to you to finish up with any kind of final thoughts.
Awesome. And Brian, just a question for you for the group. I mean, you showed that inside of Business Central. Could that be in Teams or D365 Sales as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Anywhere that you can embed Power BI reports, you'll be able to see and interact with those reports that I just showed. Yep.
Perfect. Awesome. Yeah, and that's the big power of it, right? And I'll summarize some of this for you because we covered a lot today in this 30 minutes. But the first thing, why is this important? What are the closing thoughts around this, right? So Power BI is now a reality. Everything you saw that Brian just showed, you could be doing in 15 or 20 minutes with Cosmos. So, it's a very fast way to get Power BI up and running for your business while also addressing, your financial and operational reports, like it says in the second bullet there. So it's the best of both worlds. In today's hyper competitive business space, businesses don't just want financial and operational reports, but they also can't just use dashboards. You don't want to see your financial statements on a dashboard. So you need both of these things in tandem. And that's why we integrated Power BI into Cosmos, because everything Cosmos is tightly integrated with Microsoft. Also, centralized scalable data management. One thing we didn't show today, because we wanted to stay focused on the topic, but one thing we didn't show is that Cosmos has an entire data engine behind the scenes. And this is a tool that's built to take data out of your systems, clean it all up, organize it all together, and then put it into a nice data model that's easy to report off of, whether it's in Excel or Power BI or something else. And so Brian showed some of that data model today in Power BI, but that's another big thing, right? Is the ability to hook up to a data source or a number of data sources and tie all that together into a true reporting database or data warehouse, however you want to think of it. The other big piece with that is the whole one version of the truth concept. If you're pulling your dashboard information from the same data that you're pulling your report information, they're going to tie, right? They're going to be the same numbers that you see. Oftentimes when we see folks use one tool for reporting and then try and use Power BI separately, they always get to a meeting and then two different people have different numbers, right? Someone's sales show one thing because they use Power BI. Someone else's sales show a different number because they went to the ERP directly with a different tool. And so by leveraging one data model for Power BI and your other reporting tools, or other reports, I should say, you get one version of the truth with your data. Lastly, as I mentioned, it takes 15 to 20 minutes to have all this. If you're interested, reach out to the team at Optimus. And I like to mention this and show this because I think it's impactful, but I put a link here to Microsoft's Enterprise Power BI deployment white paper, so how to deploy out Power BI. And if you want to see what that looks like, I actually downloaded a copy of it. So here it is right here. So if you don't want to use a shortcut like Cosmos to get there, you can still get Power BI up and running in your business. But as you can see, for Microsoft, you got about 260 pages of stuff to go through to make that a reality, right? Otherwise, if you want to spend some time with Cosmos, 15, 20 minutes, you have, all of this, right? In a matter of minutes. This is going to take you a long time. And so I show this because I love Power BI. I think it's a fantastic product, but I think most organizations see this and they're like, yeah, I'm not going to go through all that, or we don't have the bandwidth to deal with this right now. And so it just gets kind of put on the back burner. So I figured I'd point that out because, again, I think it's important to understand the implications of trying to do it from scratch. So with that, I want to say, obviously, thank you very much for attending today. I put my email here, anthony@cosmosdatatech.com, if you have any questions. And then obviously you can reach out to Optimus, your partner, operations@optimus.guru with any questions you might have or any follow-up you might need on this stuff. But I did want to check, Gabriel, did we have any questions or anything we need to address before we jump off?